Today's episode is a rare and powerful conversation, one that spans generations, transformation, and legacy. Our first guest, Dato Sri Idris Jala, is no stranger to tackling the impossible. From turning around Malaysian Airlines to advising national leaders through Permandu, he's built a global reputation as one of the world's foremost experts in transformation. Named by Bloomberg as one of the top global leaders, he now inspires millions through his work and his podcast, The Game of Impossible. But what makes today's episode even more special is that he's joined by his son, Leon Jala, a rising voice in the space of creativity, culture, and reinvention. Leon has lived across continents shaped by diverse cultures and now co-hosts the Game of Impossible podcast alongside his father. His mindset is grounded in authenticity, adaptability, and the courage to create a path that's uniquely his own. Together, they represent a power fusion, the wisdom of experience, and the energy of the next generation. This is a conversation about building greatness, not just once, but again and again through legacy, purpose, and mindset. Dato Sri Idris and Leon, welcome to the Olympian Mindset.
Thanks for having us, Josiah.
Thank you. Most welcome.
Well, this is my second ever episode, and I'm super excited because I had such high-level guests, and this is about mentorship and mindset. So I said, okay, when I'm thinking about who I'm going to invite, I reached out over Instagram and I said, I better practice what I preach first, right? So I'm talking about my mentorship. I get the guys who can be my mentors. I love your podcast, what you're doing with the Game of Impossible. It's great. Now, let's start with beginnings. Now, we're all Sarawakian.
Yeah.
You guys are Orang Ulu.
Orang Ulu.
Kuching, right? So how did your Sarawak childhood shape your belief in the impossible?
My dad was a teacher, and I remember as young as I had always been, he told me one thing. He said, son, if you want to be number one in class, you have to find out who is currently number one, be his or her best friend, to know exactly what he or she does, do all of that, but to the power of 10.
Power of 10.
To the power of 10.
Man, I love your dad. So he was a teacher.
He was a teacher. That's what he said.
Elementary school? Or?
Yeah, primary school.
Primary school.
And that was what he did. He just told me there's a word in Klabit that describes that. It's called katui. Okay. It means burning desire to win. And in Hokkien, there's a similar word. Yeah. It's kiasu. That is in the Oxford English Dictionary now.
Yeah.
And if you think about it as a coin, the negative side of the same coin is the kiasu, which is fear of losing.
Fear of losing.
Yeah. But the positive side of the same coin is burning desire to win. But it doesn't matter whether on the negative or positive side. One thing that is common is that people who are taking either positive or negative side of the coin, they take extreme measures to the power of 10. Extreme measures. Do it, but to the power of 10.
Man, you can't pay for this stuff. You're speaking my language because I've been obsessed with winning the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Win everything. Even, same thing. My dad was the young, early proponent of just like, let's see who can wash the dishes faster or whatever, right? So it taught a little bit different way. And my parents are teachers too. In Kuching, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that coincides. So Leon, you've lived across various continents growing up. How has that early adaptation shaped your mindset? And what does the Olympian mindset mean to you? Did that shape your ability to reinvent yourself and adapt into adulthood?
Yeah. I like the fact that you talk about reinvention because I think that would probably be it for me. The biggest thing that actually shaped me in having to move so many times was the ability to reinvent. But I think not just the ability to reinvent for reinvention's sake, but for me, we talk about this, the podcast is called The Game of Impossible. Yeah. And why do we call it a game? And I think for us, we think that if you want to pursue something big, you have to also approach it with a sense of lightness. And so to think of it as a game is to recognize that similar to a game, you can't necessarily undo a move, but you can start again. And so for me, I think having to move countries, the ability to sort of reinvent myself, if you like, got me into the habit of starting again. In different postings at different times of my, let's say, education, I had different seasons. So there was maybe one season where we moved to Sri Lanka, and I thought, you know what? I want to be a bit of a social butterfly in this season. And so
How old were you then?
I think I was when we moved there, I was 8. And then when we left, I was probably 12. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I want to be like the school rock star.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did that, and I was like doing all of the battle of the bands and all that sort of stuff, blooming socially, but I really declined academically. So then I thought, well, actually, you know what? This hasn't been so good. I've not been doing very well in my studies. Then came a chance to go to the UK. And then there was a reinvention there, because in the UK, I came to this harsh reality that actually, you know what? I felt kind of stupid when I went there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we went for all of these, like, I basically couldn't get in to any of the schools that I wanted to apply for. But that was a big awakening for me. And therein came another opportunity to reinvent myself and to say, you know what? If the Leon in Sri Lanka was kind of this athletic superstar, I think in this season, I want to be smart. I want to be the academic Leon. And so that was a chance to reinvent myself again and start to become a bit more studious. And then I thought, well, you know what? That's been great, but I feel like I've sort of diminished myself a little bit. I've been a little bit too by the book. So then when we moved from the UK back to KL, I said, well, maybe here's a chance to kind of reinvent myself again and try to find a bit of a middle ground between the two.
How old were you when you came back here?
So when I came back, I was about 16.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
16, then all the way until I went back to the UK for uni.
Yeah, okay. So earlier, in Sri Lanka, you're like, okay, music, rock star, and then and athletics and whatnot, right? What sports?
I did mainly football and basketball.
Oh, okay, the mainstream, the sports that are hard.
And I was also a bit of a b-boy as well back
really?
then.
No kidding. Get that, a pastor that can do b-boy stuff. That's cool. A pastor, a b-boy, and have got tats. That's like the modern cool pastor, right?
Gets me in a lot of trouble as well with other Christians sometimes.
Oh yeah,
The people who comment on our podcast, they say that I'm disappointed that Leon has tattoos.
Oh my goodness! So you know what? That would come from my background, Seventh-day Adventist, right? They're super no earrings, no tattoo,
strict.
vegetarian,
that's
whatnot, right? They basically just like, I would kind of like say a little bit like Mormonish, right? Like super like clean cut and everything. So the same, like I was like, I became rebellious as a result of that, right? So it was very interesting. Like my mom never wore makeup and earrings and everything, and it's like Sabbath day had to really like tie the rope, right? Just like no talking about worldly things for 24 hours until sundown and everything. So my church before, I'm not so religious now, but they would have totally judged that, right? So that's kind of cool. I dig that. So okay. Back to you, Dato Sri. So the childhood really shaped your belief in the impossible, and I see that your dad wanted to instill a gamesmanship in you.
Yeah.
So throughout your earlier career, did you turn everything into a game?
It's always been like Leon said. I always felt that you can always restart.
Yeah.
Because life is not linear, and if you think life is linear, you had it. Because you will fail along the way. How do you pick from where you had fallen and move on? And that has always been the case. But always setting the target that it's so outlandish that you know that your current way of doing it is virtually impossible if you keep doing it the way you do it. Either you have to reinvent yourselves, you change the way you do it, then only you can achieve what you call the Olympian targets.
The Olympian mindset.
And so it means we call it the game of the impossible because the target is impossible to achieve based on the current way of doing it. It can only be achieved but in an entirely new way of doing it. And that is why the discovery was very, very important. And so in my life, when I've been fortunate, or unfortunate, to have been thrown into the deep end. And when I was in Shell for 23 years, to do jobs as managing director of companies that lost a lot of money. In Shell Sri Lanka, it had lost money for 27 years. So when I went there, the government ran the company for 22 years and lost money every single year.
Yeah.
Then Shell bought 51% equity and lost money for 5 years. So 27 years it had lost money. Then I was appointed as the managing director at the age of 41. I went out there. The first thing I saw was it was virtually impossible to fix it based on the current way of doing it. The government controlled the selling price for LPG, and the selling price was lower than product cost. We bring our product, we already lost money at the port of Colombo.
Sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah. So
with how our government does things.
So what I basically did was, this is totally unprecedented.
Yeah.
As the CEO, I turned up and told everybody in marketing and sales, please do not come to work, because the more you sell, the more we lose. So please go home and don't work. I'll pay you full salary. They thought I was mad. I'm not mad, because the selling price is lower than product cost. The more we sell, the more we lose. So I knew that my first challenge was to say, abandon everything that we do today.
Yeah.
Let me now figure out how to negotiate with the government to allow us to increase the price. That stuff, it went right up to the president of the country. There I was 51 years old, figuring out what to do. It was an absolute game of impossible. They planted bomb at our depot, and we had to detonate the bomb. They took my transport manager hostage. They had to bring one truckload of soldiers and one truckload police to go and rescue him. I was there, man. And my wife had panic attack because I had to had my house guarded 24 hours round the clock.
And you got the death threats as well.
I
in
had
that
death
period.
threats as a guy that sent letters to me because I had to reduce manpower in the company. And so this guy wrote letters to me. I know exactly how you get to the office every day. I used to be a sharpshooter in the military. I will shoot you. And he puts the bullets there. And Leon was this young kid at that time.
I thought it was really cool. I was completely oblivious to the
of
sense of
course.
danger. For me, it was just, wow, this is cool. My dad's
cool.
doing
I
stuff
got
with the soldiers.
bodyguards.
There's death threats. I just saw it as kind of fun. But
crazy.
Obviously much later on, I realized why my mom had those anxiety
Panic
attacks.
attacks. The
'cause-
whole year she had it.
Yeah, gosh,
So
that must
that's
have been
for you.
terrifying.
I was there for 3 years.
Oh, okay.
So the first year was tough.
yeah.
My wife had panic attack, frequent episodes of that. And
Okay.
we did turn around. We had record profits in my second year and the third year, the highest profit in the entire history of that company.
That's amazing. That's a big U-turn, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think the point is this. If you look at something that is virtually impossible,
Yeah.
you realize that it is impossible based on the current way of doing it. As an athlete, you'll know this, Josiah.
Yeah.
You have to change your diet, you have to change your exercise regime, you have to change your sleeping pattern.
Yeah.
Cannot be the normal way of doing it. It has
Absolutely.
to be entirely
And
different.
you can't do it the way everyone else is doing
No.
it. Because then you only get up to their level. You can't surpass them.
You can't surpass them.
Because it's very competitive out there.
Yeah, that was to me was the baptism by fire. And I can tell you, years before that, it must have been 5 years. I was given a book by a gentleman by the name of George Parsons.
Okay.
He's an American. He used to do some consulting work for Bill Clinton.
Okay.
So he came and gave me the book. He said, Idris, if you read this book, and if you take the mindset, the paradigm was the word he used, your life will never be the same again. The book is written by a lady by the name of Tracy Goss.
Okay.
The book is called The Last Word on Power, Executive Reinvention to Make the Impossible Happen. See the word that Leon says, and you use it, well, reinvention. Executive reinvention to make the impossible happen. And so all the things that I talked about in our podcast were inspired by Tracy Goss. I've never met the lady. I consider her my virtual mentor.
Yeah.
Never met her, read her book more than 12 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would just be happy to get through one book one time. I had learning disability or learning challenge. But okay, looking back, so to get to that point where you could make the big moves at that stage in your life, I want to roll back the clock a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this is critical because we're helping the audience right now.
Yeah.
like learn what leads to what, right? So
Yeah.
when I set goals, I set it backwards.
Sure.
Outcome and whatnot. So, what was your first encounter with the idea that you could do more than you thought? Right. This is rolling back real to your childhood.
The earliest time was when I got out from primary 6. I was in a school called Seridan, Long Seridan. That's very old, rural school. My father
had to
was the
walk like
teacher.
a couple Ks
yeah,
or
a
whatnot.
long time. And the story was this, and this not many people know this.
Yeah.
All of us failed in that class. We didn't pass our primary 6, including me. We all failed.
Wow.
My father was the teacher. So my father could not believe that we all had failed because he said it's impossible.
Yeah.
So he then made an inquiry.
Wow.
How come all of us had failed? He wanted our exams to be retested and checked.
Yeah.
So when they found out, the story was this. The boat that carried our exams from the Longhouse to Marudi, the town, had capsized. And so all of them were capsized and never reached the town for checking.
Yeah.
So they just said all the students have failed.
What?
And this was a real problem. So my father was the teacher. So he asked them, what is the solution? Can we reset? They can't reset. So he then told my dad, who was the teacher, pick the top 3 students in the class, and they're the ones that pass.
Wow. Setup.
I was the best student in that class.
Yeah.
And so the story was told by my dad. When he was told, I went to Form 1 in Barrio Secondary School.
Yeah.
That stigma, I thought my dad had lied to me about that story, that I'd actually really failed. And that I had actually failed, and that the other 2 kids who came through, Langat and Mura, that they also failed. They just did something that's glorious and helpful to these rural kids, allowing us to go to Form 1.
Yeah.
But it was a stigma that stayed with me. That's why I took my dad's idea. If you want to be number 1, you must know who is the best person. Do what he does with the power of 10. I did that. I was one of the top students, always number 1 and 2 in class. And I've always been doing that. Even when I went to Sophia University in Tokyo with the best student from Malaysia, from Guam, from Brazil, we went for summer school there.
Yeah.
Some Japanese students, or Philippines, Indonesia. I was the top student as well.
So if you're this top student, your dad told you always hang out with the better than
the
you.
best.
Then where do you go from there, right?
Every time you move,
Back then, especially, no internet.
if you go to the next school, you find out who's the best student there, you do the same thing. When I went to Sophia University in Tokyo, I did the same thing too. But to the power of 10. This is the idea of taking extreme measures.
So yeah, like any of you guys have heard, like you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with more. I mean, you took that early on, right?
Yeah.
To the power of 10.
Yeah. I understood it right from beginning.
Yeah.
Because that episode,
Yeah.
it stuck with me when my dad told me that boat has capsized. I kind of didn't believe him.
Oh, wow.
I kind of felt that I actually really failed it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Leon, does that resonate, or is like completely different? Like,
No, it's the same thing, but I think
Were you
that-
always always trying to push the limit in the school, or just the early phase in Sri Lanka that you're like suffered?
Yeah, I mean, like that wanting to push the limits has always existed. It's just that it manifested in different ways. So, you know, in one part of my life, it was wanting to push the limits, maybe athletically, maybe musically. And then in another season, it was wanting to push the limits academically as well. And a lot of that has also just been driven by a general sense of maybe a competitive nature. And I think I would probably say for most of my life, maybe that competition, while the outcomes of it were positive, if I reflect back on what was the heart and what was the posture, I would actually probably say that a lot of it might have also been an unhealthy competition. And a
He
competition,
doesn't like to lose.
Okay.
He really doesn't
Are
like
you a
to
bad
lose.
loser?
I know.
quite a bad loser. I'm working on it.
Okay. Still, really? But okay, how do you lose in like pastorship?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, one of the biggest change of mindset for me was, and this is quite recent, and this is actually in the context of church as well. So there I was thinking that, you know, I'm one of those people who I obviously grew up in church. You know, my parents told me a lot about the gospel, but I didn't really fully sort of invest in my faith until much later in life, maybe at about 24, 25. And so I remember there I was suddenly at 25 being very plugged in to church, taking all of my roles in serving the church very seriously. And then I remember there was someone who then came into the picture, and this guy was brilliant. He was so eloquent, so intelligent, well-spoken, very well-rounded as well, because he also came from a corporate environment. So as much as he could speak into spiritual stuff, he also had a lot of very practical
Really
wisdom.
balanced, man.
So very, very good. And, rather than celebrating his strengths, I actually caught myself feeling a little bit almost threatened. And so I entered this kind of stance of competition, which wasn't great, because it was competition for competition's sake. It was competition to want to outdo this person. And so that went on for a while.
Well, that's interesting.
And what really shifted gears for me was I one day just woke up and told myself, you know what, I'm not gaining as much. Even if I want to look at life as how can I get the upper hand, you only really fully grow in life when you adopt the posture of a student and of a learner. And so I told myself, a little similar to your story of figure out who the best person is and become their friend. I figured, well, actually, how can I not only be a friend of this person who I thought was smarter than me, but how can I actually come under their tutelage? So go one level below and say, how can I be mentored by you?
Yeah.
And this person is now my boss.
No kidding.
And so I went from trying to outdo this person
Yeah.
to just saying, you know what, I'm going to relent. Actually, there's so much I can learn from you. And so I then decided to go under his mentorship and under his tutelage. And now he's our vicar of the church. And, I support him. And that's been hugely enriching for me. Because by putting away that maybe unhealthy sense of competition, it then opened up room for me to actually really learn.
And you both grew. I mean, that reminds me of when my teammate, Dato Azizul Hasniawang, he back then, Azizul, young kid, he came in and he started outperforming me.
Right.
And then all the sponsorship, all the attention, everything turned on to him.
Yeah.
So the same thing, I felt threatened. But then I thought, you know what? Keep your enemies closer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I onboarded, befriended, and took the any friction away, and tried to help each other. And then we just that's when our level rose.
Both of
Yeah.
you, right?
Because
Both.
we
Yeah.
both grew.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Right?
want to jump into that because I think when we talk about competition, we must think also about the collaboration side. The
Absolutely.
two. So, but the key here is that the winner, the Olympian mindset, which we call the game impossible,
Yeah.
the kind of paradigm,
Yeah.
is people who can take a new mode of competition and a new mode of collaboration.
Yeah.
That means when do you know that you're going to compete? When do you know you're going to collaborate? So that fine balance of determining exactly the arena for competition, the arena for collaboration. And if you can find a way how to do this, you can really be out there. You look today, it's some of the best bands in the world. You look at the Beatles, for example. They collaborate amongst
lot,
themselves
right?
a lot, but they also compete. That's
Yeah.
why when they broke up, it
Right.
was irreparable. They couldn't come
Yeah.
together because the distinction between the collaboration and competition is a fine line. So if you're not clear about where you draw the line, and then you take it personally.
Yeah.
And so when I was in Shell, we tried to do this because in Shell, there were places where we collaborate and compete with Exxon and others together.
Okay.
And when we first started to do it in Malaysia, because we said to ourselves, when we see people from Exxon, they are our competitor, we shoot at first sight. Enemies.
Yeah.
But then we realized that we should collaborate in certain areas.
Okay.
So the area where we will say to ourselves, we will compete until the cows come home, or blue in the face, we'll compete at the wellhead, where the reservoir. How much oil and gas is in the ground, we compete.
Yeah.
And then we will compete intensely when we compete with the customer at the petrol station.
Yeah.
Everywhere along the line, in the depot, in the refinery, we can collaborate, in pipelines.
Yeah.
So because that's bringing down the cost,
Everyone wins.
everyone wins.
yeah.
But we compete to get this the customer. We compete to get the most oil and gas out from the ground. So once you're clear about it, you relax. You can work together.
Okay, so yeah, so it's a compete and then work together.
work
but
together.
sometimes
You collaborate.
You
But
collaborate
you
first
must
and
you
then
must
compete.
know the area of collaboration.
Right,
The
right.
area of collaboration is in the
Yeah.
middle, in this case.
Yeah.
Where we compete is the customer competition
Yeah.
for the customer and the oil and gas.
Yeah, yeah.
When we find them in the ground. Every well in the chain is collaboration.
Man, business and sport are so
Yeah,
similar, aren't it? Like, I don't know if you watch Tour de France or anything, but or it could be any sport. Like, some of the rivals, they work together to get
Yeah.
away from everyone else, and then at the last 100 or 200 meters, then
Then
it's
they
okay.
go.
Yeah,
it's
okay,
fair
now
game,
let's
Yeah.
play game.
right? Or in a marathon, right? Because they can draft off each other.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. You look at
Along.
middle distance running,
Yeah.
Sebastian Coe,
Yeah.
Steve Ovett, and
Yeah.
Krem. The three of them, they were the best middle distance runners in the 80s.
Yeah.
They worked together, they collaborated, but they compete intensely as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that's if you can find a way how to get the two components put together, you can have an unassailable advantage in terms of becoming a champion.
Yeah, absolutely true. Now, curious. Are you friends with any of your former arch rivals and enemies?
Of course.
Right?
I'm still
Same thing.
friends with Tony Fernandez, who was on
Yeah,
the
I
airlines.
watched that podcast.
Yeah,
That
I
was
And
never-
friends
arch.
while you guys were doing battle
Yeah.
in
No,
business
Were
as
you?
well.
Yeah.
No issue. There was one time Tony and I was at a pub, and I was a Malaysia Airlines CEO, and he was Asia. We
Yeah.
were sitting there in the bar
Yeah.
drinking beer,
Yeah.
and there I could sense that there were folks out there in the corner of the pub having a heavy discussion about who the
What's
folks
going
were,
on?
what's going on. They didn't believe I was Idris, you see.
Oh.
So then the guy approached us.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, "Are you Idris Jala?" I said,
Yeah.
"Yes." "Oh, yeah." He said, "That guy is going to put all the beer on the house because they had a bet that cannot be Idris Jala. He cannot be
That's
such
hilarious.
he just cannot be such a
Wow.
good friend of
Yeah, yeah.
Tony Fernandez
Yeah.
because they thought we were arch rival. The
Yeah.
point was, it was a professional competition.
Yeah.
I was never taking it personally. I was there
interesting.
hired to become the CEO to compete with him.
Yeah, yeah.
I never took it personally. My job was to beat him. So I
Yeah.
told him, "Tony, you are Manchester United, I'm Chelsea. My job is to beat you, and vice versa.
That's right.
I'm paid to do that. That's my job."
Absolutely. That's I remember that from your podcast
Yeah.
with him. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Now, okay, we're talking about Malaysian Airlines, okay? At Permandu, your global consultancy firm, 2 steps in your 8-step Big Fast Results methodology involve publishing a clear roadmap, right, and setting KPIs. What's the psychology behind having a clear roadmap
Yeah.
and measurable KPIs and tracking progress so rigorously?
Yeah. The key reason why we do that, when you publish the KPIs
Yeah.
and you have told everybody this is the target you're pursuing, you become completely pregnant.
Yep.
When you
No
are
going
pregnant, no going back, there's only one consequence.
Yeah.
You have to deliver.
Yeah.
All the ladies who are pregnant, they know the only consequence is either you have a miscarriage or you deliver.
Absolutely.
And so publishing the document is a public declaration that you are just going to do it.
accountability.
Accountability.
You set yourself up for accountability.
Yeah. Now, the thing about the KPIs is that when the target is set down in such clarity, there's no more place to hide. If you just said, "I want to be a champion," people don't know what it means.
Yeah.
But if you say, "I want to be the runner or the fastest man on earth," like Usain Bolt said, "I must run at 9.6 seconds." Well, he did run
my
at
target,
5.8.
Yep.
But once you declare that's the target, and it's crystal clear, no place to hide.
No place to hide.
You've told everybody, and you've now no place to hide because you're so explicit about the precise target. The more precise the KPI, the more it's no place to hide. To your point, it becomes 100% accountability.
And this is what drives success.
Yeah.
I mean, Olympian Mindset, I teach people, I say, okay, just write down your goal and tell someone you trust.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have to tell everyone. Tell someone you trust. So it's kind of like,
Yeah, similar.
whether it's big
Yeah.
global company or whether it's just personal goal setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Carl Lewis did that.
Yeah.
You know, someone interviewed him.
Yeah.
He said, what is your target? He said, "I want to be the next Jesse Owen."
Yeah.
And he was immediately on the front page of the Times magazine. Then he said, "Oh my God, did I say that?" Now that I have said it, I have
Yeah.
to now make sure that I win 3 gold medals and to be the next Jesse Owen.
Yep.
And so, I mean, it's exactly the same.
And he did. Well, I had the honor of meeting Carl Lewis at
Yeah.
the Olympics. He's larger than life.
Yeah.
He's still a star, man. It's unbelievable. But yeah, that goal setting bit that it really drives us forward, right? And Leon, can you tell me about something that you've set your fairly recent goal, and who you told or what you
I mean, the most recent one that comes to mind is us, making the decision to do the podcast.
Okay.
And I think similar to you,
Yeah.
it was something that was a little bit uncertain because you and I we're fairly late into the podcasting game, but
Yeah.
it's so saturated now. Maybe if we talk about
think
globally, I would say we're late, but
Yeah.
in the Malaysian
Locally,
space,
I think
there's
we're
still
fairly early, right?
we're still fairly early.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I think we're at a place where if we enter the space to kind of call yourself a podcaster,
Yeah.
there's naturally this sort of sense of like another one of those.
Yeah,
And
'cause
so
the
there was-
barriers are so low.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of that playing in my head. And so I remember setting myself a goal to say I wanted to do a podcast because I've always enjoyed storytelling.
And when was
back
this?
this was back
2
in
years ago?
2023.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, it wasn't 2023. The desire first started in 2019, but it was an idea for the longest time. And one day, my wife, she got so tired of me talking about it, and this is in 2023, in November of 2023. My wife Andrea told me, Leon, I'm sick of hearing you talk about this podcast idea. I think you need to do it. She's
Yeah.
like, you're good with deadlines, right? You work well under pressure. You know what? I'm going to give you a deadline. And so this was in November 2023. She said, by March 2024, I want you to release your first episode of something.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's crap. I don't care if nobody listens to it.
Just do.
Just do something.
Start.
Something. Even if you're just going to record yourself on your mobile phone, just post something.
And the problem is
so-
we're all fairly perfectionists. Like
Right.
you want to do it properly, right?
Exactly.
Same thing. I wanted to do podcasts for a couple years before, same as you.
Yeah.
But I was overwhelmed by I have different skill sets than you, right? You're more technical than me, right? You do all your post production, you do everything. Or I have to tumpang off of like the guy, I'm more like your dad, hang out with the good guys, and
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of my mentors, I don't know, Teshingan, he was, I think he sold his company at time.com. He says, Josiah, I do my mentorship walks with my mentors.
Right.
Doing around Bukit Damansar, I said, telling him how everything's going. I'm struggling, blah, blah, blah. So it's been 10 years since my retirement. I had not really found my calling yet. He says, the issue I see is you back everyone else. You invest in other people's companies, but you have a real asset, your Olympian mindset, right? Have you invested in yourself? I said, well, not really. So why don't you invest real money into yourself? So that really kicked me up my butt. In 2 weeks, I put this strategy together, thanks to ChatGPT, right? Strategy together, put my list, started messaging. That's when I messaged you, and then pitched it to equities trackers to help pay for production costs and partnership and all that. And right away, like in 2 months, up and running.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just that meant that tell someone and just
Yeah.
accountability.
It goes back to accountability, as you said. So
right.
having that accountability, that was the first step to get me to do something. But then, of course, there was the question of what's the right thing to do. In a saturated market,
Right.
how can I make something that's going to be of worth?
The value.
The value. But that was the thing that was also hindering me because I kept thinking about what's going to be the unique proposition.
Yeah, USP.
That was the thing that stopped me from putting something up because I thought, well, there's so many great podcasts out there. How am I supposed to stand out? So then I decided, you know what, that's starting to become a roadblock for me. how do I
In your head.
in my head. And so I said, you know what, actually the goal is very simple. I'm not even going to think about what's going to be the best format. I'm just going to think about a simple measure, which is what is going to be something that I'd be willing to do for 200 episodes. And I said, no matter what, it can be the worst thing possible, but by hook or by crook, I have to do 200 episodes before I decide to
That's
call it
interesting.
quits. Because there's this, I sometimes listen to Alex Hormozy.
Yeah.
He's a bit vulgar.
He
I don't
is.
agree with everything he says, but
Very
there's
American.
very American.
In your face, bro.
In your face. But there's one thing he said that really stood out to me, and he said the worst ideas, or rather the biggest failures or businesses that fail, they don't fail because the idea was bad necessarily, but in many cases they fail because the business owner or the teams did not put enough reps in. They gave up too soon.
Quit too early.
So his point was put in the work and go for volume. And that's what we decided to do. I said, okay, volume. So if I
200.
backtrack, if volume is the game, now what's gonna allow me to meet 200 episodes in a way that is enjoyable and in the way that I would do even if nobody cared, even if nobody listened. So that's naturally what brought me into format, because at this time I was still thinking of, who just maybe doing something on my own, inviting different people from different industries in.
Yeah.
But I figured, okay, doing that for 200 episodes, it might be quite difficult with my 2 other jobs. And so then one day I just remember having a chat with my dad. And as he was talking over dinner, I just had this thought at the back of my mind. Actually, the answer is sitting right in front of me. Why don't I do a podcast with my dad? Then it ticked the first box, which is, would I do this for 200 episodes and beyond, even if nobody cared and nobody listened? Yes, I would, because that would be, number one, it would be
quality
bonding
time.
with my dad.
Yeah.
But secondly, I'll be learning.
Yeah.
So I'll be growing and improving myself. So I don't care if
Absolutely.
nobody listens. I'm benefiting hugely from this. And so that was that. And that's what caused us to start this. But you know what? I think an easy way for us to be able to discern what should be the main thing is, I call this thing the PASS framework, PASS.
PASS.
So P, is there a sense of purpose that
Okay.
is greater than you, purpose or even passion? So this goes back to the, would you do something 200 times even if
Yeah.
nobody watched? And so in our case, okay, tick the box. I could do it with my dad. A stands for audience. Do you think that this will be of value to others as well? So in this case, I figured, yeah, of course, I think it would be valuable, because we're not just going to be talking about ourselves, but we're going to be talking about principles that I think others will be able to apply, whether in business, whether in church, whether in their hobbies as well.
Yeah.
So we figured, okay, there's an audience. Let's move on to the next thing. Is there any sort of inherent skill that you already have? And you don't have to be the best at it, but do you have some baseline skill in this area?
Yeah.
In
Your
my
core
case,
competency.
core competency. In this case, I figured, well, I studied film in uni, so I can probably do this on my own. I don't need to hire a crew. We can save money. I used to do marketing for many years with Leo Burnett. So I said, okay, I know how to get a story out, tell a story.
Yeah, you're
I
actually
know how to push it. And then I also
Cool.
figured, well, and I do this a lot in church. We have conversations. I talk a lot. So I figured, okay, well, I think we can do this. He can definitely talk a lot. So I said, great. So we have the inherent skill thing. And then there's the other S, which is scale.
Yeah.
Is there an ability for this thing to scale? And I think scale can look like a few different things. On the one hand, scale can be thinking about, well, obviously, can this thing grow into something bigger?
Yeah.
So scale in a business sense, in a sense of growth, but also scale for those of us who might be listening to this and, maybe you're not in business, maybe you're just thinking about personal development. Well, scale can also mean, is the thing that you're doing, are you going to be able to invite someone else along the journey with you? Are you able to use this to then also invest in others? And it could just be like bringing one person on to mentor as a result of the thing that you're doing.
Speaking my language, brother.
Well, exactly. And so in this case, we figured it's both, because we're able to help others. We're basically able to mentor other people at scale, because if we were to do one-to-one, then we're doing one-to-one. But if we're doing video format and podcasts, we're doing one-to-many. So there was scale in that sense. But also we figured, you know what, like this is also probably going to be something potentially lucrative. So there could also be scale in a business context as well.
Well,
so
gotta pay the bills, right?
PASS.
Yeah.
Got to pay the bills.
So on the S side, we have been, I would say, inundated with requests for live podcast interview at corporate events.
Okay.
We've done a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's paid as well, so that's good.
Oh, that's
And that's good. And we couldn't cope with that.
music to my ears.
Yeah, we couldn't cope with it.
Okay.
The other one is, we couldn't cope with it. We had
So
to
you have
turn down.
too much demand
Then
now.
too much demand.
And
We had to
how
cope.
long did that take? If you could.
I mean, when we started, it took about 5-6 podcasts. We already got
That's
the
it.
request.
So you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
You
the
got
other,
momentum quite fast.
and the other scale, if
Yeah.
I wouldn't say which airline, our podcast will appear on one airline starting August.
Okay, I
Yeah.
can guess.
That's one.
Yeah, I can
And
guess who-
one
yeah.
university is now in discussion with us to put this in the curriculum
Okay.
in the university, so you can see how
That's really
how it's going to go
interesting.
beyond the
Yeah.
normal scope of what you.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
didn't think about those stuff. We're discussing. So the scale is
Yeah.
it can go outside what you originally thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that now is that local like Malaysian
Yeah.
as well? But
Yeah.
I think it can scale internationally.
Yeah, of course.
I had a call with La Roche,
Mm.
the
Yes,
number
yes,
2
yes.
hospitality in Switzerland.
Yeah.
They reached out to me because they want to help athletes transition. They want to put a program together, online program to give them certificate. Of course,
Sure.
charge them a ton of money. And they wanted to engage me as one of their mentors. I'm like, that's very interesting.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
who would have thought, right?
Yeah,
So it can
Yeah,
scale
yeah.
even internationally, cross
Right.
borders.
Definitely.
because we speak English
Well,
as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Now, going back to what you said about failure. So that's a big thing. When I do my workshops with people on making breakthroughs, the first pillar of Olympian Mindset is to reinvent their relationship with failure. Because especially in our culture,
Yeah.
failure is frowned upon,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Kiasu,
Yeah.
right? So I said, okay, think about this. The biggest champions of every industry, do you think they fail more or less than you? And right away, of course, they're like thinking, right? I said, then I have to answer them. They fail a lot more.
Yeah.
I tell you,
definitely.
the bigger the champion, the more they fail. The difference is they're able to reset after a failure.
Yeah.
Novak Djokovic,
Yeah.
the greatest all-time tennis player numbers-wise. No one can argue the fact, right?
Yeah.
In terms of
Yeah.
Grand
No doubt.
Slams
Yep.
won, right? A couple dozen now, right?
Yeah.
He said the difference between me and Roger and Rafa is when we make a mistake and we have a loss, normally the average or good tennis player, good sportsman will kind of like think about it for 10, 20, 30 seconds. I allow myself to get mad. So the same thing, we're still human, but I'll turn it around in less than 2 or 3
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah.
I'll reset.
Yeah.
That's very
Absolutely.
interesting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The sting of failure
The
is
sting.
better
Sting of
than the
failure.
chronic ache of regret.
Yeah.
Abs.
When you fail, you get over
That's
it, you
gold.
get to
Yeah,
reset.
Yeah.
That's
But
gold.
when you
Yeah.
regret, you can't do anything about it.
There's a saying that is that 99% of failures come from people who make a habit of making excuses.
Oh, yeah.
This is very true.
Yeah.
In my work, in the corporate work,
Yeah.
every week we have a tracking on Friday
Oh,
of who has done it for the week, who has not done it.
yeah.
We have a traffic light. So if you have a task that you were supposed to complete by Friday, if you didn't do it for that week, it will appear as red.
Whoa.
And so what it does is
I
that
love that.
then you have to go into problem solving. We don't call it failure because
Right.
failure is associated with admission and also
Yeah.
associated with guilt.
Yeah.
But we said problem solving meetings
right.
must happen every week. So you have 2 weeks to fix the problem. And if you can't fix the problem, it automatically get escalated to your immediate supervisor.
Oh.
And he or she now must solve the problem. And he or she now is also given 2 weeks to solve it. And the supervisor or the manager of that person will look at it every Friday. See, the beauty of this automatic escalations, no problem is kept under the carpet in an organization.
Okay.
And second beauty of the automatic escalation is that supervisors and managers cannot just blame the folks down below for things not done
Which
because
is not the norm, right?
not done. Because what happens is if they can't fix it, it gets to them.
Right.
now
their
you
problem.
you
It's their
become
problem.
their problem.
Yeah.
And if you can't fix, then you realize no wonder he or she didn't fix it.
I like that.
You know,
Traffic light.
You know,
That's
the traffic light.
gamification.
Yeah,
exactly.
Once you put it like
Okay.
this automatic escalation, you have a traffic light. You then create a mechanism to solve failures, but we call them problems. And this is a weekly affair.
Right.
You get into this thing. So in the mindset of an athlete or an Olympian, you talk about seconds in the corporate world because there's so many people involved, the whole
Yeah.
organization. You have to create a system that would allow failures to be addressed systematically and systematically across the whole organization.
Yeah.
Now, does you call that governance?
Yeah.
Yeah, governance. I mean, that I learned that when I did tech startup.
Right.
I learned it from my corporate advisory, and governance, and it takes on so much meaning now in my life because
Right.
in family you have to have good governance in your corporate jobs in any organization.
Totally.
That is great governance. You can gamify governance.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I take from that.
Yeah,
Gamification
yeah.
of government.
Totally possible.
Yeah, but
Cool.
it goes back to that thing you said about the distinction also between the kiasu and the katui, right? Because if we assume kiasu,
Right.
then the fear of losing
Yeah.
can be the very thing that stops you from wanting to fail. And like you said, in the grand scheme of things, if you want to win in the long game, you've got to swallow some losses as well.
Swallow what you
So
eat.
if you are purely afraid to lose,
Yeah.
then you're not even going to take those losses that will help you win in the long term. But if you take a katui mindset, which is just burning desire to win,
Yeah.
then in order to win, you want to win at all costs, even if that means that some of the initial steps that you take towards wanting to win big are going to mean that you have to fail a little bit in order to get there. So that kind of positive framing, it speaks into what you said earlier as well about framing things as, rather than failures, they're problems.
Problems.
Because
Problems.
that naturally implies that
Problems
there's
can
a
be solved.
solution that can be
Yeah. You
born out
reframe
of
it.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's I'm learning. I'm absorbing everything, guys. So what would you say naturally is your relationship with failure? I mean, look
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Both of you. Let's start with you.
Yeah.
What's your natural relationship with failure?
The natural reaction for failure is even before you even begin it, you ask the question, will I win or will I fail? And if you are afraid of failing, you don't even want to begin that journey.
Yeah.
This is the biggest problem of mankind. I would say today, categorically in my view, 90% of human beings will die and get buried underground, not fulfilling their full potential because of the fear of failure. They're constantly afraid to fail. So what do? They set realistic target, simple targets that they know they will win and they will beat the target. And you know what? If you keep doing that all your life, you are walking the path of mediocrity. You will never achieve the Olympian kind of goal
Absolutely.
because you now said, I'm afraid of losing. I
Yeah.
set realistic target. I'm never going to push myself.
Yeah.
And thus you'll never achieve your full potential. So for me, it always begins with how do I conquer the fear of failure? Even before you begin.
And this was when? Like when you were how old?
Even in school.
Okay, so
because-
it was ingrained in you early on.
Because
then.
I mean, if you have 7 subjects,
Yeah.
you're not going to be top of class in all 7 subjects.
yeah, of course.
You'll be number 5 in one, you'll
Yeah.
be number 2 in one, and what do you do with this? So I mean, you will fail. You may get the number 1 in it or number 2 in the whole class, but there are many subjects.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
were top of your class, weren't you?
Yeah, but in some of them you're
Okay.
not top. You see.
But I want to know your failure because
Yeah.
when you were young, because
Yeah. So that's
yeah.
that's the first.
okay,
When you get down to the failure and then you are no longer number 1, you
Yeah.
really get back to the question. So what am I going to do differently?
yeah,
So and most of the time I found it is to do with things like habits.
mm-hmm.
I am not following the routine that I set out to do. That means study at this number of hours, read this number of books, and do the model testing of yourself on model answers and checking it out. So, these are the things. The habits are not there in line with it. You postpone things, you procrastinate them.
Were you a procrastinator?
Yeah, of course you
Really?
do. I mean, I believe the human beings, we are born to be lazy.
Ah,
Yeah, we all are. Nobody can tell
Guilty,
me
bro.
honestly by saying that I'm just born to be wanting to be ruthless about discipline. No. I
it
think
may appear that way, though.
yeah, it
some
may
people.
appear, but it's something you train.
Yeah.
You train yourself to do,
Yeah.
but it's not our natural instinct.
Yeah.
So you have to find people to help you along the way to make you follow some rules and rigidities in some of the things you do. But when you make the mistake, you have the first thing to accept that you have made the mistake, and there's a failure in the things that you do. And when you do that, then you figure out how do you get out from it. You must find the answer. And normally, I found the answers are not repeating the old way of doing it. You fundamentally said, I'm going to change this. If I'm procrastinating before, I now have to find someone to force me so that I don't procrastinate.
Yeah.
Who's that?
That's to do with your friend.
Oh, you're okay.
That guy who's number one.
Right,
And
right.
this guy, when I
Yeah,
was
so
in school, his name is Madan.
Okay.
So he and I,
Medan.
Madan, he was very good student.
Yeah.
So I became his friend. So he and I were always number one or number two.
Yeah.
Because we knew that if we play this game, he plays it too. He plays against me as well, but we work together, we studied together.
Yeah.
So he really raised our bar.
Yeah.
Like the Steve Obet and Sebastian Coe, middle distance runners in the UK.
You created your stable of
you
champions.
create the stable of champion.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had no difficulty of losing to him. In some years when he's number one, it's okay because he's my friend.
Okay.
And we are completely out there. So I think when you do that, I kind of realized I went into a new school. Every time you move to a new school, you kind of miss that partner, the guy that collaborate and compete with you.
Yeah.
And,
Find a new one.
Yeah, find new ones. That's the key.
Yeah.
In business, it's the same.
Yeah. Well, business, there's no shortage of them.
Yeah.
Same as sport. There's no
Yeah,
shortage.
same.
I mean, no matter what, no one can stay at the top forever, too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You always got to find a way. Someone always pushes you down.
Yeah.
Some young gun always comes out of nowhere, right?
But I can tell you, I give you an episode. The biggest failure that I've had in leadership was when I was in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And that was really damning because we had this, it's a little long story. If you don't mind, I'll tell the story.
Please do.
So we ran a business that was selling LPG cooking gas.
Yeah.
And our LPG was 13 kilogram LPG cylinders. By safety standard, you should not fill it to the brim. That means you can only put in 12.5 kg of LPG into the 13 kg cylinder to allow for expansion when it's hot.
Yeah.
So we did not follow the international safety standard. We fill 13 kg cylinders or LPG in the 13 kg cylinders. So when I was negotiating with the president and the people in the government that we wanted to increase the price, they told me like this, Idris, we are going to run a presidential election 6 months from now. Why don't you follow the international standard for safety? You drop the content of your LPG into the cylinder from 13 to 12, but you don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
That's your price increase, the first price increase.
Couple points in margin there.
Yeah, a couple points in margin.
Kind of smart, eh?
So
If you wanna ask me.
I think it was a fatal mistake that I took from an ethical standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
So I agreed with them.
Yeah.
And so there was a whistleblower. And the whole of Sri Lanka, and they pinned me on. I was a bad guy.
Yeah, you're a bad guy.
They put a photograph of me on the front page of the Sunday Leader sitting on an LPG rocket. And the heading was The Lie Within Shell. The Lie Within Shell, the front page. And so I was on the Rotary Club. I remember when I turned up on Wednesday evening for the Rotary Club. All the movers and shakers in Sri Lanka gather at the Rotary Club on Wednesday. Then I realized that nobody come and ask me the question, how are you?
Yeah.
When people are even shy to ask you the question, how are you, Idris? You know you are really in deep S.
But in a way, you're lucky that back then there was no like IG or internet,
No,
right?
absolutely.
You
But
would have been like,
I learned. That's where I learned. I learned today.
Okay.
Ever since that episode, I actually teach ethics in my company. What are the things you need to do to avoid falling into that stuff?
Yeah.
And so that was a biggest lesson for me because I was a failure. I was a CEO. I made an ethical failure.
Yeah.
in making the wrong ethical decision to deal with that. I couldn't defend myself in public domain.
Man, thanks for sharing that. That's vulnerability right
Yeah.
there, man. And how long did it take you to turn that?
It took me about at least 6
Page.
months.
Okay.
Mentally, I had already
Mentally-
moved,
Okay.
but I could not handle the crowd.
Yeah.
The people
Yeah.
still
There's a
looked
lot
at
of
me, this
backlash,
man
right?
is guilty.
Wow.
This man is guilty.
Yeah.
He's a terrible fellow.
Yeah.
He's a cheat.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have that
Wow.
stigma on you, it takes a
That's
while.
heavy.
It takes a while for you to turn that.
So how did you mentally? How do you get through? What did you rely on? I mean, what did you? faith?
I'm a Christian faith.
Right.
And that was the time, it was a tough period. My wife had panic attack.
A lot of prayer.
I was my time on my knees praying
Wow.
and was praying to God to try and help me with all these difficulties. And I praying at my wife panic attack with bomb under the depot. It was very, very tough. And I considered it was the period of my life. I was 41 years old.
Yeah.
It was a turning point for me. I came into Sri Lanka Shell as a boy in leadership. I came out a man.
Yeah.
And I remember
Wow.
clearly, John Ruskin, we both always quote, he said, the best reward for a person's toil is not what he or she gets from it, but what he becomes of it. What he becomes
Yes.
of it. That's the point about a reinvention. The
Growth.
pursuit of that leads the growth to you.
Yeah.
Become
Personal growth. isn't
personal
it?
growth. That's, in my mind, that's a guarantee. Success is not a guarantee, but the transformation is a guarantee if you
Yeah.
pursue the game of the impossible in
Right.
what you call the
Yep.
Olympian journey and mindset.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's heavy. I mean, but big lessons from that. Leon,
Yeah.
what was your relationship with failure early days? And paint us a little picture of your progression if there was any.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I've obviously not held as sort of big. I've not held public offices like that, and so
Yeah.
you know, my scale of failure has maybe not been as catastrophic and not as public. In terms of a general relationship to failure, I think I mentioned earlier that I've just always kind of been afraid of failure.
Oh, have you?
And I think
Okay.
for many reasons, I think one of them is I think growing up with such a prominent father, right? I think that brought its challenges as well, as much as it had its perks. The challenge was that I always felt, and this was largely self-imposed as I reflect, but I always felt that people would naturally compare me to him. And so I remember for a big part of my life, and in fact for most of my life, it was only really 3 years ago where I decided to lean into it. But for a long time, I just thought, okay, if people are going to compare me, then I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure I distance myself from my dad. So whatever he does,
Smart,
I'm going to do the
right.
complete opposite.
Smart, right? Yeah.
And there I was thinking that I was charting my own path. I thought it was very noble. And, in many senses, yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
But there was also this underlying kind of unhealthy posture within that, which was also like, I'm just kind of doing it for the sake of distancing myself.
For the sake, yeah.
As opposed to taking some of his wisdom and then applying it in my own context. That would be, I think, a healthy way to chart your own path. And I realized all of that was because of a fear of failure, of a fear that if I were to journey alongside him, if I were to come intentionally under his tutelage,
yeah. And the same type of journey
in
as
the
well.
in a similar type
right?
of journey, that it won't work out for me,
Yeah.
and a fear of
Where's
what
there
other
to go
people
from your dad? He
exactly
set such a high bar.
But
exactly
he's too humble. I can tell you this. At his age,
Yeah.
I could not do 4 things at a time.
Yeah.
I was working for Shell, then I was a father. But he does 4 things. He is
or more.
deputy chairman of Pemandu.
Yeah.
He's a pastor, executive pastor. He's a podcaster, and he's a father too.
Yeah, I know.
And so, I mean, I look at him, wow, Leon is the new improved version. I see it because I could not do that at that age. So in many ways, I'm also learning, looking at Leon, oh, he's able
That's
to do this.
interesting. Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
how can he's a
Yeah.
video guy, he's a cameraman, he does the
Yeah.
editing of the thing. I'm totally amazed that he could do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't do it. I did one thing singular, two things always. I was there in my job and I was a father, and that was it. And I couldn't do four things, juggling four
He's
at
a
a time.
juggler.
He's the
a
juggler.
really good juggler, isn't he?
He's a very good juggler, and it's tough.
To be fair to you,
Yeah.
our generation
Of course,
has a lot
more advantages.
we advantage. We have a lot
Tools.
more tool sets. When we have a huge tool set now called AI.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is incredible.
Incredible.
The people who are not using AI are gonna lose
Dumb.
over and over again to us.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So
It's
in terms of
incredible.
countering that fear of failure, it's
Right.
exactly that. We've got tools now that allow us to, we talked about failing
Absolutely.
systematically, failing with
Yeah.
purpose, or some people might say failing forward.
Yeah.
We can fail forward now because if we fail, we can use AI to help us to figure out what were some of the patterns.
Yeah.
What were the things that went wrong? How can I course correct from there?
Well, the pain isn't as painful as generations ago.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? You make
Yeah.
a mistake generations ago, it's gonna stick with you, the stigma. But now everything's moving at such a high pace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That people forget yesterday already.
Yeah.
Because they're focused on the next thing. And I think the biggest leaders are able to tumpang off of that. They leverage off of that.
Yeah.
Because they know, okay, how do I get people to forget my mistake? I mean, we know a big orange man that does that. Let's create another drama somewhere else, right? Then they'll forget because the new thing is like, people crave
Yeah.
now for that nonstop drama,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that we can use that
Yeah.
as well.
Definitely.
And I think, your contemporaries,
Yeah.
they do leverage off that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
definitely.
right?
Definitely.
Magicians.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
But back on how to counter the fear of failure for me was really actually switching to thinking less about the goal. So you quoted John Ruskin earlier about not thinking about what you get out of the goal, but what you become. And how do you get yourself into that position? I think for me, it was focusing less sometimes on the outcome, still having an eye on the outcome and on the goal. But then once you've set that, put that aside for a while and now focus on the habit. And you'll be familiar with this as an athlete. It's all about
Absolutely.
the discipline. It's all about the habit.
Yeah.
James Clear wrote that book Atomic Habits, right, which has completely fundamentally changed the way that I approach my goals, because he says famously that you don't rise to the quality of your goals, but that you fall to the quality of your systems. And so for me, thinking about if I put aside the goal and just focus on the system, that helps me to approach failure in a much better way, because I see failure as just part of my tuition.
Yeah.
And I see failure as just another chance to try again, to put in the reps. And that's why I always try to organize my life so that whatever I do, I can do things quickly and I can try again very quickly. It's the reason why we decided to do the podcast as a one-man show, because it just meant that I could try again without much cost. I could fail for free, basically. If it didn't work out, then it's okay. I didn't have to pay a crew to come again and reshoot. I could do it myself. But it also meant that I could put up an episode. We could put up an episode every single week. So it meant that we could fail every week, because every week we might get a title, we might try a title, and it doesn't work. We try a way of doing the thumbnail, it doesn't work. We get to assess performance, we get to do little experiments every single week. So then our rate of learning was exponential by the ability to do that.
There was one episode that we recorded the whole episode. When we finished recording, we realized the sound wasn't there.
Well, yeah, there was
happens,
that. And
right?
then
Yeah, it really
our
happened.
very first episode, episode one.
You see the crew like looking at each other.
Yeah.
No.
Episode one.
Check the
Yeah,
sound a
Right.
lot, right?
Yeah, exactly. Our very
Episode
first
one.
episode, we had an entire camera that wasn't even
no.
rolling, because what we did is
Battery
we started rolling too soon, and I was using an A7 III, and so what happened is that the camera overheated, because it has like a 20-minute cap. So after 20 minutes to regulate it, it stops rolling,
Okay.
and we forgot that it had already been rolling prior to us starting. So then for episode one, the first ever episode, there was one entire shot that was just we just didn't have at our disposal.
We refer to that not as failure, but a problem to be solved.
Yeah.
Right.
The mindset of calling it as a problem to be solved rather than the failure is a very important mindset shift.
Set your
Yeah.
SOPs
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You
But
know
also
it's problem to
early
be solved. Don't admit it. Don't say it's my fault.
Yeah.
Don't look for the guilt associated with
Yep.
it. Just move on. It's a
fix
problem
it.
to be.
Yes.
So in this
Move
case,
on.
what is the problem? The blooming sound is not there.
Oh,
Let's
bloody.
re-record.
Oh man, yeah.
That is how you do it.
And then you probably do the better.
The next time you know,
better-
you make sure
better-
it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
So-
mean, cross fingers doesn't happen to me, but see, the same.
Yeah.
My approach is get the best people in,
Yeah.
right? So
Even the
it-
best people make those kinds of, they encounter those problems.
True.
But we don't
That's
call it a failure.
Right.
The best thing to say is not a failure, it's a problem that we had encountered.
Yeah.
Now let's figure out how to solve it.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it doesn't happen twice.
Yeah, it
Correct.
hasn't
I like
twice.
what you said about bring the best people in, because I
Right.
think that's the second component for how you approach
Yeah.
failure.
Mm-hmm.
There's the system around how you just keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
But you also need some voices around you,
Build the
right?
team. Yeah.
You need to build your team, but you also need to
Absolutely.
build your kind of advisors, people who are going to
Yeah.
feed back into you. And so I often think of three people, and this is not my idea. This is stolen from another pastor.
Okay.
This guy's name is Gerd Jones, and he says in life you've got to have these three people in your feedback loop. The first person is what he calls the wizard.
Yeah.
So the wizard is basically your mentor figure. They're a little bit older than you, a little bit more ahead of you in years, but also in experience.
Yep.
And this person's role is to keep you learning. Then you've got to have the second person, which is the cheerleader. Now, the
Yep.
cheerleader is that one person who, no matter what you do, they're always going to encourage you, always going to cheer you on.
Usually they're a closer person to you. Your
little bit
wife,
closer,
your
exactly.
dad, your mom.
And this person's role is to keep you persevering. Because if we
Okay.
go back to that point on, usually things fail because of a lack of gestation period or too short of a gestation period.
Yep.
This person is to help you to persevere. And then the third person, which I think for me personally has been the most important and game changing, is to have the warrior.
okay.
Now, the role of the warrior is the person that's just going to call you out on all of your BS.
Ah, yeah.
this person-
That can also be the wife. And
Yeah,
the-
yeah,
In my
yeah.
case, it is my
It's the
wife. I'm
wife.
pretty sure for you as well, it's mom.
Yeah.
It is my wife.
So
Okay.
the role of this person is to keep you grounded.
Grounded.
And why you need these three people is because on the one hand, you need the feedback and you
Yeah.
need direct feedback because
Absolutely.
feedback is what helps you to grow.
Yeah.
But if you're only getting kind of constructive feedback all the time, then that can be pretty discouraging as well. So then you need another person to counter that with the encouragement.
You need the small wins, don't you?
Exactly.
Because the big journey is so big and long.
Yeah, of course.
To get the big win.
Absolutely.
Well, exactly.
You must
If you get all losses,
Yeah.
we're all human. Eventually,
You get,
eventually it like gets molded into our brain, right?
Yeah.
It's just burnt there, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Like, you
Yeah.
you need to celebrate, as I always say,
Exactly.
celebrate the small, and you need
Yeah.
the person to help you celebrate
Correct.
the small.
Yeah.
And then you need the wizard for once you figured out
Yeah.
what you might need to do, then the wizard will then say, well, I think, let me advise you on how you can do things differently the next time. And you need this because, ultimately feedback is probably one of the biggest gifts that we will get, but it's also the hardest thing to receive. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's also hard to give feedback. And the reason for that is that we have two
In a constructive way, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We have two human desires, right? We have got, on the one hand, we've got the desire for growth,
Yeah.
but then there's also the desire to be
To
accepted.
be loved.
And why we feel feedback is hard is because between these two desires, if you put the two desires in a boxing match,
Yeah.
usually the desire to feel accepted is always going to outpunch the desire for growth.
Mm-hmm.
And feedback addresses the desire for growth, but feedback also challenges the need to be accepted. So when-
Uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
and we
when
love being comfortable as
Yeah.
humans.
And as an
That's why I want
athlete,
these comfy couches.
well, yeah, as an
we love
athlete,
yeah.
you put yourself, you sort of put a little bit of your identity into the work that you do
Totally.
as a creative as well.
Totally.
As we put out a podcast like this, we're putting a little bit of ourselves out there into
Yeah.
the work. So naturally, if you get negative feedback or constructive feedback,
Yeah.
you can't help but sometimes feel a little bit challenged
Little
personally
down,
as well, a little bit
right?
down. But that's why having that feedback loop is important, so that there's a balance and that
So
there's
that
always a way
balance,
to
right?
move forward
Yeah, yeah.
from it.
If you are equipped with many people around you, it's good to have different sets of people playing different parts of those three roles.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's in my view, it's better to have someone playing the role of wizard, the cheerleader, and the warrior separately, because then you don't take it personally.
Right.
Because you're now telling the guy, when the person is playing the role of the warrior, criticizing you, telling you, bringing you down, they are not taking it personally, because that's the role assigned to the person to play. And so, but if you don't assign it, sometimes we're all human.
Yeah.
Then you say, yeah, this guy is always negative, telling me negative stuff, and I don't like it. But if you assign that person clearly to give you that kind of feedback, you accept it because not personal.
Yeah.
It's a professional feedback. So normally, if you have an array of people available at your disposal, it's good to have 3 separate people that do that, so that you don't take it personally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a skill set too, as a mentor, as a teacher, and someone's good friend, to be able to kind of to balance it out. Sometimes you want to, because you have to jog out that
of course,
that feeling, right? So if you know they're gonna take that constructive feedback hard, sometimes you have to balance it. But I always like to start out with, what I liked about it, or what you did well. And then puff them up, build a little bit of buffer, and then say, but
this is
here now the bad news.
The ship sandwich.
You want the good news first or the bad news first, right? Because different people want different order.
Absolutely.
All right.
One of the tricks for doing that, actually, well, tricks makes it sound coercive, but one of the ways that we approach coaching conversations at the church is that we do that. So we start by asking, we ask the person, well, tell us where are you winning?
Yeah.
So, you get them to reflect, take stock of their wins. But it's also healthy, because sometimes when you're just kind of in the motions, it can be easy to forget to take stock.
Oh, that's true.
So you get people to take stock of their wins.
Yeah.
Then comes the second component, which is then the feedback thing. But what we do is that we frame it as a question to them, in the sense that we then ask, okay, if we asked where are you winning, the next question is, where are you challenged, or where have you been challenged?
Yeah.
Hopefully, if the person on the receiving end is self-aware enough, they'll be the ones to bring it up. Oh, last week, actually, now that you mention it, I missed a deadline, and that wasn't great. So then you start you get them to basically be the one to bring it up. And the reason for this is, if you're the person who feels that you've had agency to bring up the problem, if we now talk about solutions around the problem, you're less likely to feel defensive because, well, I'm the one who recognized it. I brought it up. I'm still in control. So we do that. And then the third thing is, then you still leave the ball in their court by saying, okay, well, thanks for raising that. What do you think you can do to kind of avoid that problem next time, or to do better in the next iteration? So then what that does is it also trains their leadership muscle to think about problem solving for themselves. And you're still not saying, you've done wrong, here's what I think you need to do. You're giving them agency once more, because with agency comes buy-in as well. And then only the fourth question is finally, well, where can I come in to help you in this? Because you don't want to entirely leave the ball in their court, because otherwise, as a leader, they might just look at you and think, oh, this lazy bugger, just asking me to come up with all the problems, right? But you're giving the first half to allow them some agency and control, but then you're reassuring them that, okay, I think that sounds like a good plan. What can I do to support you?
That's a really good process also for parenting, right?
Absolutely.
I found that I've used some of that. Of course, my younger ones are a little bit young to use that in depth, the whole process. Usually maybe about 7, 8, 9 years old, then that would be ideal, right? But when you're going through that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's how I approach the, parenting.
Yeah. Hardest leadership lesson, right? Being a parent.
Oh my goodness.
Tough.
Absolutely.
If you can lead little kids, you can lead any team.
But critically too. The first few years of their life, the first 5 or 6, right, is the most critical time to set that standard, right? Because right? You heard of the saying, right? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. As we get older, it's harder, it's tougher to change.
Very difficult. Those are formative years.
Totally, formative years.
Most formative years, and if you haven't got that right in the beginning, the foundation for growth is shaky.
Absolutely.
And I really believe that for parenting, the formative years is absolutely critical.
When we know that now there's more information out there about that. But back in the day, in the 80s and 90s or before, there's hardly it's just trial and error, right?
Trial and error.
Again, we have more tools at our disposal. We have the information out there telling us. So automatically, Leon and I will be better parents.
Definitely.
Because we have
True.
the tools and knowledge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
knowledge. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, on that note, we should take a little bit of a break, go to the toilet or whatnot, and then we'll come
Sure.
back and wrap
Okay.
it up. We've
Right.
Man, if we didn't take a break, we can go. I know we can shoot through your whole day's schedule, but man, it's been really
Wonderful.
amazing.
Wonderful.
All right, man. We've had a really amazing conversation so far, man. We eat up in the time really fast. I want to kind of, move towards closing up the third half or second half on legacy, on mentoring,
Yeah.
and values. Because as you said,
Yeah.
values is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
On ethics and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, Leon, how does one balance embracing family legacy and carving out your own path? We already touched on this, but like moving up forward.
Yeah. I think so. For me, one of the big shifts was, a couple of years ago when I decided to go into working with Bamandu, working with my dad. I had to shift the mindset from kind of living in the shadows to thinking, how can I then also stand on the shoulders of giants? And this goes for not just with my dad, but other kind of mentor figures as well. How do you take a little bit of that legacy? In my case, then some of the Clubbit legacy. What are the best things that I can take from there?
Yeah.
But still apply that in my own way, rather than thinking, how can I just completely do my own thing? Or does following in the tradition mean I need to follow in the exact same footsteps?
Yeah.
You talked about values earlier. I realized that actually what I can do is probably see what are the value systems that I can take, because values are able to be applied across different contexts. And I
Absolutely.
realized that's been the real magic of being able to take some of those values, but then stack them across different disciplines, my own disciplines that I have inherent skills in, and how can I use that to propel me a little bit further. So I think that's been basically my approach to handling those two things, of charting my own path, but making sure that I'm also intentional about taking certain principles and value systems from my dad to then make those things even more kind of well-rounded. And I think for me, I've often been interested to see how we can get kind of business practices as well as philosophical practices, pastoral practices, but also creative practices to converge.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why we started this platform,
Yeah.
was to be able to do that. And also to really help, and this is maybe more of a personal mission. It's not so much what we do at the Game of the Impossible, but I think so many times there are a lot of creatives out there who have, brilliant ideas, but the problem is they've got the idea, but they don't have that sense of industry or the discipline to then scale that idea to make it something bigger than themselves.
Okay.
You get lost in just
Yeah.
kind of the
in the daily
craft,
grind.
in the daily grind. And sometimes I catch myself doing that as well.
Yeah.
As someone who's also editing all the videos, I can get
Yeah.
lost in the process.
Okay.
So for us, for me, I've always thought, how do we get creatives to think more like business people?
Right.
But then on the flip side, how do we also get business people and leaders there to think a little bit more like creatives? If you look at some of the best leaders in the world, they're often the ones who, on the one hand, have a real pragmatic handle on the business,
Right.
but also have a philosophical view on life
Right.
and sort of a creator's heart. We interviewed Dato Sri Asman Mokhtar.
Yeah.
Someone who's in the finance space, you would think that they would only be binary in the way they think,
Right.
but he's hugely philosophical
Yeah.
and a big fan of the arts as well. And I think that gives
Interesting.
people like that an edge, and it's similar to you, Dad, and your love for music. And even people might not know this,
Yeah.
but you also paint. You're a painter as well. And I
Oh,
think those
yeah.
things just help to round us out a little bit. So, as much as we can, if we can find ways to help those two disciplines converge, then I think we're ultimately able to contribute to building a society that's a lot more well-rounded, and leaders who are also a little bit more well-rounded and relevant across different disciplines and industries.
I like that when you shared. I think in our 30s and 40s we start becoming more well-rounded.
Yeah.
And in our teens and 20s, it's like too really focused and just like want to go, and then after that we kind of like develop that
Yeah.
mindset that you've just talked us through, right? And how to balance ourselves and grow with different perspectives
Yeah.
and kind of pull everything together.
Exactly. You don't have to be the best in the world at one particular discipline. Of some people, they take that path because they've got the skill
Yeah.
set to do it. Like in your
Yeah.
case, as an Olympian, you had some sort of natural.
Yeah.
There would have been some inherent kind of natural strengths as well that
Yeah.
you could leverage on. But for some who maybe don't fit that bill, the other thing that you can do is just be quite good at a few things.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah.
But the key is then how do you stack those things?
How do you pull it together?
How do you
right?
pull it together well?
Yeah, and hey, that's basically how we jaga, how we balance, pull it
Yeah.
together. That's the craft now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I find that Dato Sri would have gone through already, so he's the guru. But Leon, myself, and for those listeners that are around our age, that's what we're trying to grow, to
Yeah.
perfect.
Totally.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
there's no perfection,
Right.
but we strive to get there, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's good. Dato Sri, on collaborate storytelling and values, is there a personal story you rarely tell that speaks to your values? Ooh, you have to dig deep on that.
Well,
Yeah.
but the thing is this:
Oh.
the story that goes through the family from my grandfather to my dad is a very simple thing that they talk about. They don't talk about big stuff. They say just be the best version of yourself in whatever you do. I mean, you just must be the best version of yourself. And I think about it. If you ask me what would be the family legacy,
Yeah.
that has always been the one. To be the best
Be the best
version of yourself.
Of yourself.
The three of us will never be able to beat Usain Bolt in
No,
100,
yeah.
in 100 meters. We haven't got the physique to go and do all that.
Yeah.
We cannot be. But we can be the best version of ourselves in whatever we do.
Maximize our own
Yeah,
potential.
Potential. So I think that has always been the key. So if you ask me, if you're a rubbish collector,
Yeah.
if you are a headmaster, or if you're
Yeah.
a school teacher, you are an entrepreneur, the
Yeah.
question always be, how can you be the best version of yourself? And that is
Yeah.
that to my mind, it encapsulates it. So my dad has always been said all that the thing that he talks about ketui and all that is
Yeah.
all coming from the idea that you want to get the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
My grandfather, he decided there was a time that he wanted to convince people to leave the village in Barrio to move and put a new settlement in Padderong. So he gathered everybody. He said, guys, that place there is much fertile land,
Oh.
much better land than what we have today, and nobody is quarreling about it because it's an open forest.
Yeah.
Why don't you all follow me? Let's go there and move there. He succeeded in doing. He's a pioneer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I look at my grandfather, he was a son of the headman in the village,
Yeah.
but he chose not to. He
Yeah,
said
yeah.
he didn't want to be the headman. He just wanted to be a deacon in the church. He wanted to be a guy that is playing a role. He didn't want to be the pastor in the church. He wanted to be an elder in the church. But he said he wanted to be the best version of himself as an elder in the church.
As an elder.
And he didn't need to be the penghulu, the headman, to convince people, let's move to start a new village in Padderong. No need to have the authority, but if you can influence people, they'll come along. So best version of himself. So I think about
That's a
it.
good example.
And my dad, my from my side, is he could have been the headman
Yeah.
in the village because my grandfather from that side, my dad's side, was a headman. He asked him, persuaded him, said, no, I want to be a school teacher because nobody in the village know how to read and write. And if I can become a school teacher, I can progress our society. And he's the guy, one of the pioneer teachers in Kelabit Highlands. He opened many schools.
Oh, really?
He said, yeah, he opened many of the schools.
wow.
But when he finished 35 years as teaching, then he became the headman. He could still do it and reinvent himself. So I think the story about the family legacy runs through the idea that you can be the best version of yourself in whatever you do.
And on it doesn't have to be on set timeline too.
No,
Right?
Yeah.
you can
As you
always
said.
reset it.
You can always reset.
You can always reset. There's never a time when you say checkmate unless you decide to.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, we don't want to think about that. That opens up a can of worms, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. All right. Now, Leon, okay, you both help carry forward Kalabit heritage. Why is cultural grounding vital to your mindset and leadership? Cultural grounding vital to your mindset and leadership.
I won't speak about cultural grounding as a whole, but maybe in my particular context. I think having that Kalabit heritage, there's a sense of having a reference point of seeing what was possible by looking at my dad as an example of a kid who grew up in the jungles of Borneo, very little resources, but had a dream to get out of the jungle and to make something of himself. But in the process, actually making something out of himself, not for the sake of building his own empire, but in order to contribute to the community, contribute to society. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I take away. Obviously, I don't think I necessarily am an advocate for Kalabit heritage in the same way that other people might be. So I have a cousin who's really doing that. She's at the forefront of doing that, Elena Murang.
Oh, okay.
So she's taken Kalabit culture and heritage out to even Paris Fashion Week.
Oh, no
so I'm
kidding.
not doing that
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
in that way.
Yeah,
But I think for me, it's a bit more subtle
Yeah.
in thinking, well, if that was what was possible for a group of people who were just so driven on wanting to contribute to community, and as a byproduct of that, really succeeding in life, then how can I also embody that in whatever I do? To not make it about myself,
Yeah.
but to make it about service to others first.
Community.
And it doesn't come naturally, if I'm honest. The natural
really?
tendency is to want to sort of, you wanna do well, and you kind of naturally enjoy it when people and people give you praise for what you do as you rise up the ranks. Of course, it feels good.
It does.
But one of the things I always try to remind myself is, how can I make sure that what I do is attached to a sense of purpose that is greater than me? But then how do I start to humanize that sense of purpose by attaching it to people and communities? And how does what I do serve a community? And I think that's what drew me ultimately to, my work as a pastor.
Yeah.
Service to others, service to, a power that is greater than you,
us. Yeah.
but then ultimately service to the people whom God loves, the people whom God created. How do I begin to serve them in a way that points them back to the Creator? And I think I only really get that because of that heritage.
Yeah.
First of all, that desire to want to serve the community,
Yeah.
but also, my dad had a hugely transformative spiritual encounter. He was part of this
Barrio
big
Revival.
thing called the Barrio Revival.
I was
okay.
there. I was there right then, 1973.
Yeah.
73. Okay.
Yeah.
So, having that as a reference point, it always reminds me of, why serving the community is important, because there's sacrifices in being a pastor. I had to, one practical sacrifice was obviously having to take a massive pay cut
Yeah,
from
I
going
was gonna
to
say,
from
always
corporate
gonna be the
work.
pay.
Yeah.
It's always going to be your pay,
From
right?
corporate into full-time ministry. So there was sacrifice there, but there's
Yeah.
also sacrifice in terms of people hold you at a higher standard, higher moral standard.
True.
So there's also a sacrifice to certain maybe vices or things I would rather do.
We're all human after all,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We're all human.
I'd love to pull up to church in a 997, but that's not going to be a very good look as a pastor. So there are some sacrifices, but having that reference point always reminds me that the sacrifice is always worthwhile if we're investing in other people, if we're investing in communities.
Yeah, it's a bigger cause, right? It's greater than oneself. Now, thanks for that. That's very insightful. Now, here's one. Here's what this all leads us to. What makes someone worth mentoring in your eyes?
The first thing that you look for the person is that desire, that want to do it. I always look at people that really want to do it. And I find a kindred spirit for people that want to do it.
Not menang mentality.
You
The
know,
must
that
win.
fellow
the
want to
must
become the
grow.
best version of themselves. And the guy is prepared to stoop down and learn and be prepared to really be humble enough to say, I don't know how to do it. Can you teach me how to do it? When I see those kinds of people, I immediately feel a kindred spirit with them.
Yeah.
Because I say, wow, this is a guy worth mentoring. And I will go to the ends of the earth to go and help that guy because I know that person really desire to do it.
Yeah.
But we're normal human beings.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are folks that I think I have natural aversion to. But if this guy, you look, it's not authentic in the request.
Yeah.
And they're all about themselves, not the desire to really the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
That to me is what it is. And I want to see that burning passion for the person wanting the best version of themselves. That's, to me, is totally worthwhile.
All right. Well, I hope the audience take note on that.
Yeah.
And Leon?
Yeah, I think for me it's the same thing as well. Having a learner's posture first, and I think also self-awareness, because I think if you have those two things, then what I personally would always like to see in a mentorship relationship is that the other person ends up becoming smarter than me. Maybe there's a degree of selfishness in there because I always want to see, well, if I've spent some time investing in you, how can we get to a space where eventually I'm also learning from you?
Right?
And
give and take situation.
And I think the greater the desire to learn and to come under someone's tutelage, and the greater the self-awareness of a person, then the faster the rate of growth as well. And the faster we can get to that point where actually we're, on the one hand, I might be mentoring you in certain areas, but now actually we find that our conversations are, while I might maybe mentor you in the area of, let's say it's character development, but hey, from what I've invested in you, now you're just a forerunner in this whole, in a more tactical sense, and I get to learn from you as well. So I think for me, those are often the best mentor-mentee relationships.
And that's like ultimate fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely.
To see someone grow under our tutelage.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what that leads to with the Olympian Mindset. We're really look forward to hosting a mentorship session, workshop, if you will, where we can help any Malaysian who any Malaysian who wants to achieve greatness, to be the best versions of themselves through the framework that we provide. And in a room in person. I mean, for me, that when I saw the vision of this, I said that's got to be the core, because it's kind of like, I think everything is headed in that direction where they're democratizing everything. They're democratizing private chefs, or democratizing food, democratizing places to stay, like with the Airbnb or whatnot. And now I think we're at a great place in the development of everything in technology, where we're democratizing quality mentorship. And I see you two as the gurus, the mentors in a lot of things, in leadership, and everything that we've talked about. And I look forward to that. And thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Olympian Mindset. And we'll end with that.
Thanks for having us, Josiah, and look forward to having you on ours.
Yeah,
I look forward to that too. That will be
that's the butter trade that we're supposed to have.
That's
very soon.
I'm looking forward to being on that side of the couch.
Sure.
A little bit more relaxing. Awesome. And maybe, I played violin too. Huh?
Oh wow!
Hey,
so
jam
I come
session.
from a family
Wonderful.
of string musicians.
Yeah.
We always played at church.
Wonderful.
Our quartets for special music, and
next time we're in
worship.
the house, we jam together.
Let's make music together.
Let's do it.
In more ways than
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you.